Welcome back to the End of Life Lounge. Today we're going to be talking about one of my Instagram posts that I did yesterday, which was on 4 alternatives to burials and cremation. So we haven't discussed them yet with each other, so I'm interested to know what our thoughts are going to be. So I'll quickly just explain what each one is. So there's cremation. This is you spray liquid nitrogen over the deceased body to crystallize it, and then a machine vibrates the body for several minutes until it's disintegrated into particles, and kind of like cremation in a way. And then these particles are then freeze dried, and that reduces the amount of them even more. A pro to this is that there's no CO2 emissions that are spread, unlike with regular cremation. Then there's alkaline hydrolysis, which is also known as aquamation cremation. So it's similar to cremation, just without the heat. So this combines water, increased temperature, and then alkalinity, which breaks down the body. The pro to this is that the environmental impact is even less than cremation that we just spoke about. It's also less than regular burials, green burials, and cremation. Next is plastination. This is kind of like you donate your body to science in a way. You can either donate it to science in the sense of medical students will be, looking at body parts of yours, or you can look up Body Worlds. It's a museum that I used one of the images in my post from, and it's just kind of your body on display after you're gone. So I quoted in my post the Union University. It's a university in Tennessee, and they described plastination as it works by removing the water from cells and replacing it with acetone. After that, the organ is placed in pure liquid silicone under a vacuum, which causes the acetone to bubble out of the cells and allows the silicone to be sucked into them. This process takes about 6 months from start to finish, and it results in the organs that are not plastic coated. They're not plastic coated, but are 100% plastic throughout. So instead of it being coated, it's like completely plastic because it replaced the cells. So that's plastination. And then which I do imagine, kind of like cadaver labs with like being in medical school, they use your the body parts for a certain amount of time. It's not forever, and then they'll just cremate the remains after that. I know a lot of universities will put on kind of like funerals or memorials once, like years after, like once they did cremate your body remains. They'll notify the families, and then you can go for like a memorial. But again, it's kind of plastination, and then one day you'll be cremated. And then the last one is human composting. So this has been getting a lot more attention lately. Human composting is done by placing the body in a mixture of organic materials like soil, dirt, wood chips. And you place the body inside of a container or enclosure with all of this material, and then you allow the body to naturally decompose for 30 days. The container is mixed periodically, so that exposes it to oxygen, and then they also heat it to 150 degrees Fahrenheit, and this helps break down the remains even further. So the pro to this is that it costs less than a traditional burial, and also reduces the environmental impact, especially compared to being cremated. So those are the 4: cremation, alkaline hydrolysis, plastination, and human composting. So what do you think about those 4?
Well, it's quite a lot to go through. Plastination, I think, is gonna be not a common choice.
Yeah. I wouldn't want to.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want my body on display like that for.
Well, I wonder for some people, even if they wanted to be like, is there that much demand for it?
Yeah.
I don't know. human composting sounds like something I could do well with, because like the compost can be reused, right? Used
Yeah.
for something.
Yeah, for human composting, once the body has broken down, then the families will receive that compost and they can like make a flower memorial garden with that compost. You can even just place it near a grave if you wanted, like make your own grave. You can do anything really you want with the soil.
I feel like that can make for good ways to be remembered, more than like just a gravestone or whatever.
My understanding, I haven't looked into green burials enough to be like super educated on them, but my understanding is that human composting is separate from green burials in the sense that green burials are more like you just place the body in the grave, like no casket. You can wrap the body, I'm assuming, like with organic cotton cloth or material, and you bury them like that. That's my understanding of a green burial versus human composting, where like you're in a container, the body decomposes, and then you get the soil out of that.
I guess both kind of have similar goals in the end, but composting is a bit more flexible with what you can do with it, where you can put it.
Yeah, I wouldn't be opposed to green burials or human composting.
Yeah.
I think those are both fine options. Yeah. As far as cremation, how do you feel about this? Is the liquid nitrogen sprayed and then you're freeze dried after?
Yeah, it's a bit gruesome to think about, but again, if you think about just plain old cremation, that's, I guess, equally unpleasant.
Yeah.
But if it's a better way to take care of your body, I guess, and more green, as some of these options are, then I hope that when I am dead, I won't be affected with whatever way I end up going.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter if you freeze dry me or burn me or the other one with water.
Yeah, so cremation and then the alkaline hydrolysis, they're not legal in all like places. I'm pretty sure that, I forget if it's cremation or alkaline hydrolysis, I'd have to double check. One of them was created by a scientist in Sweden, and I'm not even sure whether it's actually legal in Sweden yet. It's kind of just like what they imagine is going to be the future of cremation, just because cremation, CO2 emissions, and just overall not a great option. So that's kind of why it was created, and why there's a lot of talk online if you research it that it's going to be the future of cremation. And then same with alkaline hydrolysis. There is, again, I should have researched ahead of time. I forget the company that is in kind of the leading one for alkaline hydrolysis, but there's like one company out there that does it, and yeah, it has less of an environmental impact than cremation does. So I think that could even be more of the alternative to cremation in the end.
A bigger alternative.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
it's water, temperature, and alkalinity, and that breaks it down. And yeah.
Seems simple.
Yeah.
But
I will have to check though, because it's using water. I'm assuming that.
Is there wastewater?
Right? Yeah. Where does the water go? Yeah. Because that is a big thing as far as like green burials too, is you have the decaying body in the ground, and when it rains and all of that water, like that's why actually here in Ontario, I talked to the Natural Burial Association of Canada last weekend, and they mentioned a guy, was it in New York?
I'm not sure.
I think in New York, that has like 100 acres of land, and is planning to give like a really big plot for green burials,
Right.
which is what's needed. But again, when you think of the future and everyone is going to die, is it the best thing for everyone to be buried as a full body into the ground?
It's seeming more and more like that won't be practical for a lot of people in the future.
Yeah. It's like, I mean, even when you look at places like Florida and California where the sea level is really high up, like they can't, like everyone there needs to be cremated, or there are above ground cement burials, but I don't think that's super practical either. So they'll just be there forever.
Makes me lean towards composting even more, I think, because it seems like a low environmental impact. And
But again, the soil will have your remains in it. So
Yeah, but-
still with runoff water.
you're kind of composting the body for months before you put it out, right?
Yeah.
Maybe that.
Well, okay,
helps.
30 days, around a month. Yeah. Yeah, maybe that helps. Hmm. Interesting. It is interesting thinking, like, going by cemeteries, like living next to a cemetery, and like, and you have a well, like not knowing where the runoff, like my sister's house is, her driveway is like the cemetery, and her house is right there. So
A
it's like
cemetery, a very old
a
one.
very old cemetery, but still, like I think about like the well and
Yeah.
water.
And well, I don't know, with thinking about green burials versus composting, I think one of the main differences that's just there is feeling comfortable with the body being whole or not.
Yeah.
And like green burials are trying to address that, but I feel like versus composting might win out between the two, right? Be more popular.
Yeah, because the thing is, like, everyone should make the choice for themselves whether they want to be buried or cremated. And there are cases where you really don't have that much of an option depending on how you die. But, yeah, forget where I was going with that.
I think more people will have to become okay with.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Thank you. Yeah, they're gonna have to become probably more okay with the body breaking down. I will say that when researching regarding grief, it is known to be harder for loved ones to grieve when their loved one
Yeah.
was cremated, or like when the body's broken down. It's hard to imagine your loved one being cremated. Like, it's not a fun thought to think about. Versus their whole body being in the ground. Like, I don't know how I would feel about a whole body being in the ground and then decaying for months. I think it would be easier to kind of disassociate from that, of they went in looking like this, I'm just gonna imagine them staying looking like that.
Yeah.
And like, you know, they're still, their bones will be in the position of them laying down, how you put them in, but when they're cremated, that kind of puts a whole new, especially if you look up videos on YouTube, that was my mistake. If you look up videos on YouTube about the cremation process, your skin will crawl. Like,
Noted.
I don't like it. There's some really graphic ones that will like have a little camera and they'll like take you in and like they'll show how it happens, and I don't like it.
What some of this is reminding me of, wasn't it some European countries where you can rent grave sites?
Yeah, I'll get into that. In January, we're taking a trip to Europe, and I'm really excited to jump into how that country that we're going to cares for the dying. But yeah, there are cases where like you can rent a grave, which I'm not 100% educated on how that works, which is why we're going in December to find out.
It sounds like it could be a potential solution, though,
Yeah.
where you have the body whole in its gravesite and you can grieve, and later on, maybe you become more okay or just accepting of the body being composted or cremated or whatever else.
Yeah, because I do find it interesting, to die in North America is very expensive, super expensive. I think the fact that you even have to pay at all is just really dumb. I don't understand why that's a thing. But yeah, buying a plot in a cemetery is really expensive. I can't imagine what it is here in Toronto, but even back home in my tiny, tiny town, like, just for one plot is a couple $100. Like, this much ground for your cremated remains is a couple $100, so I can't imagine here.
Yeah.
But I know that money is a huge factor. Like, if you are going to be buried in a casket, I feel like nowadays people think you're rich because of that. Where
I think you have to be
you
rich.
have to be rich. Yeah. But then even being cremated, that's still a few $1,000s.
I feel that cremation or some option like that, like a lower cost option, should be very cheap or free for people. Like, that's something that the government should fund even.
Yeah, I'm not sure. That should be another video. We should go over the cost of all of the options, because I imagine that cremation and alkaline hydrolysis specifically are probably just as expensive as cremation, if not maybe a little more.
Yeah, even just being newer things probably affects it.
So that's for another video.
Yeah.
It'd be super interesting to go over how much each one costs. And I was just looking here in Toronto at one of the cemeteries. They have a whole PDF, like scroll PDF of like all of the costs related to dying.
It's useful.
And yeah, it is super useful, but like so expensive. Like the cheapest way to die is still $1,000 like that. Yeah. Anyway, thanks for chatting.
Of course.
Okay, we'll see you next time.
Bye.